Hello and welcome to the Art of Decluttering podcast. I'm your host, Amy Revell, and I am here to give you a bit more of a personal podcast episode today because I want to talk about some changes that I've made in our house in the way that we've done storage over just the last week. So we've had a few changes in our family in terms of room use. So some of you may have been listening for a while and know we've been building Cal an outdoor pod for his office. And so that he moved in there last week, which means that we've freed up a room inside mostly kind of. There's still a few things that need to go over to his pod as we're making room for them. And we're going to turn that into more of a music room and a second living space. At the moment, we've got just one living room that's all open plan. And so if kids want to do something separate to adults, it's a bit difficult. So he's been moving stuff into his office, and that's kind of had a cascading domino effect throughout the home, really just for me. Nobody else seems to care. But what it's done is, like, as something's gone, I'm like, oh, we've not used that piece of furniture differently before. We could use it there. We could do this. And so I've been making changes throughout the house, not massive ones, but moving some storage, replacing some items, changing the way that we do things. And so I thought I would talk it through with you guys because I think it's important to feel confident that you can make changes even if a system has previously been working. Sometimes, like, my personality is I'm a lot stubborn. And so what that means sometimes is I can create a solution that works and then I stick with it beyond necessary because I'm just like, oh, well, it worked and I don't want to go to the effort of changing it, even though I can see that it's not working anymore. And that's kind of what's happened with some of these changes that we've done this week. Some of them have been, I'll go through each of them, some of them bigger than others. But the process for me has been really interesting. I've kind of tried to be curious and notice in myself what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, there's actually a freshness in how I feel in my space, given that I've made some changes. And the changes have really originated from one bigger change. And so sometimes that can happen if you've got a kid moving bedrooms or if you're creating a home office or if you're painting or changing the carpet or you're doing something different. I'm a big believer in, like, if you're making one change, you might as well make a few. And by a few, I mean as many as you can get away with before the people that you live with want to throw you through a window. So Cal's got his office out there. His old office, which, as I said, will become kind of a music room, second living. The kids can have some gaming stuff in there. There was some cube storage in there. We definitely didn't need it in there anymore for the new purpose. And it matches completely the storage that I have in my office. And I had found in my office, as my team gets bigger, I keep a lot of supplies here so that when we're running out of things or I'm creating new kits for new team members, you know, I've got stock. And so what that means is I actually have quite a lot of stuff in my office, but my office is like just next to our front door. It's not a room in and of itself. It's kind of an enclosed veranda. It's a very, very old house. Like, it'd probably be, 70, 80-year-old house. So there's no storage in here. And so I've got cube storage. And so I pulled his one out of his office and I've brought it into my office. And it's made a really big difference. It's kind of, even though it's added storage, it's kind of made me feel a little bit less trapped in here and like there's actually more space. Which is really nice. And then that kind of triggered me to assess what's in all of the drawers and storage in my office. What am I keeping in here? I got rid of some stuff. I felt like I should confess after last week's episode about cardboard boxes. I found a cardboard box. I'd clearly been squirreling away because I thought it would be a useful box. And so that is in the recycling bin. I couldn't think of a use for it while I was in the middle of doing all the changes. And so that's been a really nice change. Then what I realized is I was one kind of storage box short in order to make all the colors match. So then I went wandering and I found one in our kind of mudroomy entrance area. So I stole that, but then I needed one for there. So then I stole one from the kids' bedrooms. And so my office was good, but then the kids' bedrooms was missing a container. So then the cascading change was I walked into the kids' rooms and really kind of did a fresh eyes assessment. In our kids' rooms, I've built these wardrobes that have like storage and baskets for their clothes. And then there's 2 shelves above the hanging rail. The very top shelf in Jessie's room keeps all our Christmas decorations, our Christmas tree. And in Elijah's room, it keeps all our suitcases. So the very top shelf doesn't need any amendments or changing, but it's that middle shelf that they've kind of outgrown some of it. And so what it used to be is there was a container for their beach towel, a container for their bed sheets. There was a container for their camping gear, so their sleeping bag, and I think their camping chair. They've got little ones that fold out, was in there. They each had a container for a humidifier. They were both very, very croupy, asthmatic kids, and so we kept a humidifier in each room. So what I was like, we haven't used those humidifiers in probably 5 years. I don't think we need humidifiers anymore. So the humidifiers have come out. Okay, great. 2 things we can declutter. And then we've got space. And then I went along and was like, actually, one of them just has like spare parts if I was to reconfigure the wardrobe. Right. Probably not going to reconfigure the wardrobe. Those parts can go into the laundry. We've got all this space. What I also noticed is over the years is the containers we've got don't have lids where they keep their towels and sheets and things, which also means that there's just a natural accumulation of dust in the ones that they're not going to very often, like the camping gear. So now I'm like, would it be better to have different types of containers up there that actually did have lids? So I'm like making these changes. Some I'm making at the time, and some I'm just giving myself permission to go, hey, that shelf above their wardrobe has been working well for probably 11 years. Is it time to reassess, to make some changes? And so that is what that kind of spaces look like. Actually, you know what? Let's go to a quick break because I'm excited about the other change that I've made and I want to give you all the details and explain it as thoroughly as I can. So let's go to a quick break and we'll be back in just a second. So the other change that we have made is quite significant to me because it was a change that I had been noticing needed to happen for probably 12 months, but was resistant and didn't want to do it. And that is our storage plastic containers. So leftovers, things that are going in the freezer, taking leftovers for lunch, putting a roll to take, to school or something in. All of our food storage, so where, your grains and your rice and your crackers and your cereals are kept, we use Tupperware for all of that. But I had for many, 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 many years used Systema clip containers. So they're clear, they've got blue clips on the side. They actually changed the full design of them probably maybe 5 years ago, and I didn't like it. So I was sticking with the OG ones. But what I found is over time, the seals have dropped out. And so without the seals, they don't seal, obviously, point of a seal. And so then there were like these random seals in our storage drawer and there were lids and there were bottoms and I couldn't match things up and then I'd have to push the seal back in, but it wasn't really properly in. And I was just sick of managing these things that clearly weren't working anymore. And I didn't like the new ones. So I was like, okay, I actually have to investigate and find a new storage container for our home. Now, the benefit of being a professional organizer is I see the storage containers that like every home has that I go into. I see some families are really good at just having one type. And so it's easy to replace, everything mixes and matches. Other families have just like random bits of everything. And I can see that takes a lot more time. And so it was really important to me that if we made the change, we actually made it like we made a clean cut. We got rid of all of the old ones. So threw out anything that was broken, donate anything that's actually still working, and then fully replenish our stock with this new type of plastic container for storage. Yes, we looked at glass, but I'm just a klutz and 100% I would break them all the time. So that's the only reason we didn't go for glass. And my family would laugh if they heard me say that because it's embarrassing. We don't even own a Pyrex anymore because I've just smashed so many of them that I'm not allowed to have them. So we have moved to using the Decor color match sets. So they're plastic containers, they're clear, they've got a clear lid, and then the trim of the lid and the trim of the seal are the same color, so you can match them. And I had looked around at so many different clients' houses that were using them, and they didn't seem like they discolored easily. They didn't seem like they broke easily. They stacked really nicely. They're not too expensive. And this week at Coles, they were half price. And so I bit the bullet, and I went, and all I had to do is I think I spent $45 and replaced all of our plastics. So that's all of the plastics in the freezer, anything we use it for in the fridge, in the drawers so that we can put our leftovers in it and all of that. So, a full thorough changeover. But because they were so cheap, I actually didn't spend a whole lot of money on them, which I was pretty stoked about. And I'm so happy. Like, I'm really, really enjoying it. They're easy to put in the dishwasher, which is something that I was finding the other ones weren't. The lids just always flipped, and then they'd be full of water and rice grain and a bit of dirt, and I didn't like it. So I feel like our kitchen has had a little bit of a refresh just by changing over the plastic containers that we use. So as I said, we're using the decor color match ones now. I'm really liking them. Decor, if you want to sponsor me, just let me know. No, not only joking. I don't want your sponsorship. I just want the containers, and I'm using them and I'm enjoying them. So I think one of the things that instigate change can be, the house changing and the way you use space is changing. But it can also be in the situation of the boys' wardrobe, where you look at something and realize you're storing things you don't need, but the system actually isn't working anymore, that you're going, okay, it actually needs just a bit of a refresh. And then when it came to our plastics, it just needed an overhaul. Like, I actually needed to get rid of, and I'd identified what the problem was. I knew why I didn't like it anymore. And so I was able to kind of identify what the problem was, know what I wanted, spend some time doing my research, sussing it out, waiting for something to come on at the right price, and then just overhauling the whole lot. What I will say about the Systema is the small ones fit a deck of cards in. And so we still use them in our games cupboard. So there are a couple that I could salvage from our plastics drawer. They're able to go over to the games cupboard for cards. And that is just perfect for us when we travel, chuck a pack of cards in somewhere. And then it's easy to put them away when you're playing. Because as I said last week with cardboard boxes, I am not a fan of cardboard boxes. Confusing. Because I just think cards slip out and it's really annoying. So that's what we use our card containers for, is those little Systema ones. So there's some of the changes that the Revell family have made in the last week. I thought it would be an interesting episode to just kind of go, hey, this is what it looks like in our house. One of the things that made the containers easy, for instance, is the containers were already organised, so I could just take out the bulk of the ones that we're not using anymore, put them on the bench, make their decisions, recycle or donate, and then fully replace them. And so it wasn't a big effort in terms of time. It just took intentionality. Obviously had to purchase the other ones, got them delivered, and then rolled it out. So maybe you might be challenged to really think about a change area in your home, an area where you might just need to do a refresh, or something's not working anymore, and so you're like, yep, all right, I'm going to do something about it. I hope that's been helpful. I know that I'm feeling inspired and just looking at my house with fresh eyes when a piece of furniture's moved or some things have changed. Sometimes in the middle of the winter for us in the Southern Hemisphere, or if you're in the north in the middle of the summer, having a little bit of a shift and a change can really make you feel fresh in a space. So I hope that's inspiring for you. Thank you again to everyone who shares and reviews the podcast. It makes a big difference. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, enjoy the freedom. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au, and I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.